Welcome to the Heroes of Cosplay Sanctuary podcast. This is Scotty B. My next guest is someone who never has to worry about first impressions. From Vancouver, she's a creator like no other, sewing, armor, makeup, wigs, props, every detail, characterization, photo, video, and post planned with care. She lights up every con she attends, and her charm and infectious personality is just what everybody goes there for. If someone were to embody the spirit of cosplay and fandom, it would be her. Please welcome the very talented Valentine Cosplays.
Thank you so much, Scott.
Oh, thank you. It's great seeing you. It's great talking to you. I can't wait to get into all the details and hear
Ooh.
about all of the fun things that you've done, and all the amazing cosplays that you've come up with. So I guess it goes back to the intros and the origins. I usually just like to start with the origin story.
Okay.
I'm going to mispronounce many things because anime, though I love anime, I never get the names right.
Honestly,
So
same.
Yuri Kasuki in 2017 was the anime revolution in Vancouver, and
Yes.
that's kind of where it all began. So,
Yeah. There actually was a small con before Anime Revolution. It was one on Vancouver Island in
mhm,
Victoria at the university there. And one of my friends, I had been following her cosplay Instagram for a while because that was the only one she had, and I wanted to keep up with her. And she had been posting all of these really cool photos, and she looked so badass. And I just kept thinking, I want to do that. I want to play like that. And so my friend and I got closer. And as this con at the university came up, we got really excited and we were really into Fantastic Beasts. So I went as Jacob Kowalski, as, a completely thrifted Value Village and stuff like that.
mhm, mhm.
And that was kind of the little tiny appetizer. And then a few months later there was Anime Revolution, and that was like this huge thing I had never even considered going to. And suddenly I was sewing my own costume for the first time. I had to splice two shirts together for Yuri, and I had no idea what I was doing, and it took me like 2 months to figure out how to do it.
Oh, wow.
But, I got there. And now, I'm making jackets and stuff. But AR was such a fascinating experience because I'd never been in that kind of environment surrounded by people dressed up and ready to show off, things that they love and talk about things that they're passionate about. And from that moment, I knew I was like, oh, this is what I've been looking for so long. So Yuri Katsuki was a very fun one to start with because it was just kind of silly and lots of people knew it at the time.
Yes, I mean, it's just kind of a playful place to be. And now that's a pretty big convention as well. The AR convention's relatively well known throughout the
Yes.
area. And you kind of you went from that and you went all the way to Final Fantasy 15,
Hmm.
Noctis. Actually, I was just doing a little bit of research on Noctis. It's been a little while, and then I apologize. I can go back all the way to the first Final Fantasy that got a Nintendo, so
Oh
that
man.
that dates me. I wasn't very good at it either, but that's where I got started. I was like, oh, this is the best game ever.
Yeah.
But yes, 15 games later, um, still an amazing series, and you picked Noctis
Hmm.
as your it's Tsukino-kan, if I'm saying that right.
Yes, you got
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Whoa. Two for two.
Hey, you're doing
Tsukino-kan
good.
2018. It's an amazing, I mean, just looking at the photos, looking at everything that you've done with the costume and all of the work, all of the passion that went into creating the character. Just walk us through, what went into that, how you came about it, how you felt about building it.
Absolutely. So the reason I got into Final Fantasy was once again because of the same friend. Her name is Madeline. She's Party Chicken cosplay. And she had been working on a prompto, and I just found the aesthetic really interesting. And of course, the aesthetic is what grabs you, and then you actually experience the story. And that gets you even more invested. And so I decided, okay, I love Noctis. That's who I want to cosplay if I want to cosplay anyone. And so I ordered my very first wig from Arda. And this was a very interesting experience because I, at that point, didn't really order things online. I didn't really know what I was doing. And this is coming from the US, and I was so excited. And it took, I swear, a minimum of 4 weeks to arrive. And I was just the entire 4 weeks bouncing up and down out of excitement. And then I finally got it, and I thought, okay, great. I'm going to style this wig. Me, having never styled a wig before. And I got it, and that night I stayed up until 2 a.m. following all of these Noctis tutorials and snipping and doing all of the stuff to make the spikes try and go in the right direction. And I was quite exhausted for the classes the next day because at this point I was still going to university. So
Mhm.
that was pretty cool. And
But
then,
you got everything to work on the first go around. You didn't see, because that's what I worry about in getting into wigs and anything is like I'll start on a piece and I'll be like, ooh, whoops, and I have to get another one. But so
honestly, yeah.
you started and you just kind of ground through it the as soon as it got there, and it turned out really well the first time. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a combination of a lot of patience and luck. But yeah, it was very satisfying in the end. And then, of course, I had to move on to sewing pants for the first time, which are a very different shape when they're laid flat in pattern pieces than you think they're going to be, and very difficult to fit. But I got them eventually. I did them 3 times and then finally was satisfied with them. And so there is a little bit of that, oh, I made a mistake. Ready to start from scratch now. But there was also the jacket. And that jacket took me months to do because I was determined. Because Final Fantasy, as I'm sure you know, has the characters and their costumes like online, and they have all the different angles and exactly where all the seams are,
Oh
everything,
yeah, there's a ton of detail.
right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to get it really accurate. And so I spent like probably a month analyzing the designs and figuring out where all the stitches would go. And then I saw someone post some kind of tutorial about when you want to pattern something, try buying something thrifted that fits you and then cut it to fit that pattern. And so I found like this jacket that was pretty much the style that I wanted, but in the wrong material and the wrong color, obviously. And I took it home, I cut it up, and then I traced it onto pleather and then got sewing. And it took a lot. It was a big learning curve. I had to learn how to do sleeves and zippers and lining eventually, which I did not do very well. But, no one sees that part. So, but it was definitely a learning curve.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But the final product, it it turned out very well, and so well, in fact, that you wanted to get together and do a few Final Fantasy 15 shoots,
yeah.
which you coordinated with Anya Panda and Party Chicken and Poke Cosplay, just to name a few of the people that were involved.
Hmm.
And I thought those turned out really well. Excuse me, I've probably flipped through quite a bit of your content in the last few weeks. Um, and you had a lot going on anyways during all of this, like just trying to get all of this going. It was one of your first video shoots. It was, I don't know if it was necessarily spontaneous. It certainly looked like there was a lot that went into that particular shoot. And you've done Final Fantasy 15. You've done other more recent videos as well, like the one that you put together with Good Omens, one of my favorite recent shows. Love David Tennant.
Yes. Oh my
Is it,
gosh,
and they work so well together. Just the characters were
they do.
amazing, and we can talk about that. But yeah, walk us through the first shoot that you worked on, and just what went into everything that you produced and created.
Definitely. So it was quite a difference because when I was Yuri, it was quite an impromptu shoot. I wasn't expecting to take photos, and I didn't know at all what I was doing. So going into the Final Fantasy shoot, I understood more the necessity of preparation and general ideas of what you wanted to do. And so at SukinoCon is where we recorded a couple of the videos, and Madeline and I, who was Prompto, kind of bounced ideas off of each other, found text posts on Tumblr, and came up with funny ideas and things like that. And then after that, we still weren't done with the characters. Like, you kind of start getting into them, and then you have to do, for me at least, I have to do like one big shoot for a character in order for me to feel like, okay, this is good. I'm happy with this. I can set it aside and move on. And for Noctis, it was, I believe I was just the summer after university on one of the little islands, and I kind of off the coast of Vancouver Island, and I had to take a ferry and drive all the way to Victoria, and I stayed with Madeline, and Anya and Tristan both kind of came in for this shoot, and it was so hot. And we were in this car with no air conditioning. And it
Oh.
was one of these like peak days in summer. It was so hot. And all of us are there in black and just sweating through our clothes. And it's a good thing that they all wear like decently good, like thick clothes, because otherwise you would have seen
It
sweat
wasn't coming through. Yeah, you can't tell.
No,
But it's just
yeah,
like we're all miserable inside and sweating
exactly.
to death. But
Yeah. But it's a good time. We got ice cream afterwards. And I think we went to maybe two or three different locations. And that was the first time that I'd actually thought to go to a different spot than, just having one background for all of your photos and videos and things like that.
mhm.
And so throughout the day, we recorded the little snippets because Madeline and I had them all prepared and we were ready. Anytime there was downtime, we would go, "Hey, do you want to film a video? Hey, do you want to film a video?" And those ones really spring out of wanting a little bit more from the characters because obviously the writers give you what they can, but it's almost like fan fiction where you don't want to see the character die with the story. You just
Mhm.
kind of want to see them doing something else. Like what would happen if they were here or if they had this conversation. And so the videos are a fun way to play around with that idea. But that's kind of where they all started was that big shoot.
And then and then Jester shows up. So that uh, the body paint is I'm freaking out just a little bit about how all of it came together, and that was I think the where I jumped in. I said, "Oh wow, there is definitely something going on here. I have to know more. I have to investigate." Um, because it was just it was so well done, so accurate, and the characterization I thought was just great. I didn't know a whole lot about the character, but even without that, like the way that you put everything together and then you put yourself out there and just went through all the skits and really made everything come to life. That's it just pops.
Thank
So I
you.
just wondered, this is months of work, and I think when you look at a single Instagram post, it's really you tend to not think about these sorts of things, but the horns alone must have taken forever. I mean, it's just so much. I'd love to hear about what went into Jester and how that came into being, came into focus.
Ah, yes, Jester. I love her so much. Oh man. So obviously she's from Critical Role, and I got into Critical Role. I was introduced, I guess around 2018-ish, a couple of years ago, and it sucked me in right away. And I had obviously never done anything with body paint before. I'd never done anything with that many layers before. And so it definitely did, as you say, take months of work. But I started with the things I knew. So I knew how to make a dress, and I downloaded a pattern online for it. I knew how to pick fabrics for it that I thought would work. so that was okay. And I'd watched a few videos on how to do, the duct tape patterns and things like that. So
Hmm.
that was helpful for like the dress and the little corset kind of thing that she wears. And then I knew how to do a little circle cape, so that wasn't too bad. And then I got to the wig and the horns and the body paint. And the first time that I put the body paint on, I almost gave it all up. I,
Really?
yeah, because I
That
had
was it.
bought, I had bought a
That's interesting.
shade.
Hmm.
Yeah, I bought a shade of blue that was too dark. And in my mind, I thought, oh, well, it'll be fine. Blue is blue, right? No, very wrong. And I just tried a test on my hand, and it was so much the wrong color, and it was patchy, and it just did not look how I had envisioned. And I sat in the bathroom and cried for a solid hour, and then put it out there on Instagram saying, oh my God, I hate this. What do I do? And I had one of my friends respond and give me all of these pointers, tell me to go lighter with the blue, advise about setting spray and setting powder and going in with multiple coats and what to use to put the paint on. Use a brush instead of a sponge. Some people go the other way, but I like the brush.
Hmm.
And the next time I ordered the body paint, I ordered a way lighter color and I did a test, and it had arrived maybe 3 days before I was leaving to go to the con where I was going to wear Jester for the first time. And I tried the body paint and I put on more layers than I thought I needed. And it ended up that using the advice that your friends give you was really useful. And so I did, kind of take that and okay, it's going to be fine. I'm going to get through it, and it's not the worst thing that's ever going to happen. And then the horns themselves, making those, it was kind of a ratchet job. I started with a tinfoil shape on the inside, so it's nice and light. And then I found some strips of burlap for some reason that I had lying around. And because they're structured, like burlap has quite a thick structure, I was
Hmm.
able to wrap it around the tinfoil in strips and paint it black. And that's what gives them their kind of almost like, I hate to say it, but like hairy or furry texture, like the kind of little pieces that are coming off it. It's not totally smooth. And it catches on the wig hair all the time, but I love the look of it, so it's worth it. But yeah,
Yeah.
and then obviously the wig as well. I had to completely redo the bangs and totally cut it and curl the whole thing myself because I wanted it to sit around my shoulders, and the ones that were available would only kind of come to the bottom of your chin, which just wasn't quite the look I was going for.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I guess the one of the things that I've observed is you kind of one up yourself with every cosplay. And I know I'm probably going a little off book here, but I just wondered, at a certain point, do you want to like get into an entire like armor build or anything like that? Like, do you like, because it seems like it just keeps you keep upping the bar for yourself. You keep challenging yourself with the next build.
Yes.
It's amazing. Um,
Yes, so badly. I would love to do a full armor build. I have to find an armor that I'm willing to invest that time and money into first, but absolutely that's on the list. And it's even with, so when you go from Jester to something like Aziraphale, visually it looks like Jester is way more complicated. But for Aziraphale, I made everything on it, and it's very much more fitted and it's a more professional quality. And so even though it doesn't look like it was more work, it kind of was, and it was a different kind of challenge to make it more finished and more proper. Because Jester,
mhm.
you look on the inside of that thing and the seams are destroyed. They're not finished at all. So shh. But
Yes,
yeah.
but no, you cannot tell. But with the zero fail,
Mhm.
that yeah, I mean it's so accurate. It's
Thank you.
you can tell there's just a lot of detail that goes in, and you have to. He's very proper. The character
Yeah.
is very proper. Of course, he's an angel. Uh, but I think that came together all very well. And was this everything more or less just from scratch? You built the whole thing from the ground up? Yeah,
Yeah.
see, it's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't make the bow tie.
Mhm.
I did buy that, but I made the vest. And this was another point where I got halfway through the cosplay and went, no, it's awful. I should just throw it out and never do that cosplay. And then my friends convinced me to keep going, and it's fine. It's not the end of the world. And, it works out fine. But I made the vest out of this by some miracle. I found the right color and right texture, but in like upholstery fabric.
Mhm.
And then I made the circle skirt out of this stuff that's just the right color and the right weight, but of course wrinkles really, really easily. And then, of course, the jacket, which I stayed up until 4 a.m. trying to finish in one day. I remember going to bed and the birds were chirping, but which I don't recommend. If anyone's listening to the podcast, don't con crunch. It's bad for you. But it was an interesting experience because there's pleats in it and all the lines have to be so sharp because it's a Xerophil, He's got to be
Mhm.
proper. And yeah, it was a, a test of patience for sure, trying to make sure that all of the seams were done properly and the lining was there because I wanted that nice soft pink lining that I've got in there. I wanted that to kind of show through. And so if it was messy, that would show. So, but yeah, it was quite an experience making everything from scratch.
Oh yeah, I mean, and again, it's just the attention to detail, and whether it's the costumes and the makeup, it just everything just flows, and it's very, I mean, it almost seems like you plan it for Instagram because it's so Instagrammable, everything that you put together.
Thank you.
But the makeup is so good. You talked about things being a little bit messy, and no, we can't have that. But the makeup is never messy. I would never say that. But so how did you get so good at that? How did you get so good at just the accuracy? Is it just happens? I mean, because like a lot of people, I struggle with things like, for example, guitar. Other people can play it without thinking about it. Maybe that's how makeup and costuming is for you. But I just wondered if that is the case, or if you would maybe have any tips for us folks out here who struggle with some things like makeup, and maybe you have a few tips for things to avoid, or
Yeah,
tips for body painting.
sure. Definitely. On the makeup side of things, when I was, I guess, 13, I went to a birthday party, and at that party, it was themed around America's Next Top Model. And they had a makeup artist come in and teach us kind of the basics of eye makeup. And ever since then, to be honest, I've gone by those rules. So you basically just do lighter to darker from the inside corner to the outside, and then you put the darkest along your crease, and that seems to work for me in terms of makeup. And then body paint specifically, these are just my tips. Somebody might find something else works better, but I found changing to a stippling brush rather than a sponge or anything else was
Mhm.
incredibly helpful. And putting on more than one layer. When I first got body paint, I thought, great, it's going to go on smoothly. One layer, that'll be great. But if you think about painting walls, you always have to do at least two coats to paint walls. And when you're putting on body paint, it's no different. So the first coat that you put on, don't give up after putting it on because it's going to look patchy. It's going to look rough. But once you get, that second, or if you need it, third coat on, you'll be okay. Make sure that you set it with as much setting powder as you possibly can. And if you have access to it, use a setting spray as well, just so that you have the least amount of chance that your body paint is going to rub off on you or on someone else. So that's a big kind of suggestion for that. And make sure that you go in with contour because if you just do the body paint, your face is going to look kind of like the moon emoji from the iPhone. It's just flat. And hello, I'm round. And as soon as you start putting in the contour, you can totally change your face, which I'm still learning. And it's fantastic. It's such a cool experience to be looking in the mirror, putting the contour on and go, ooh, this is where my cheekbones are, or ooh, this is what my nose shape is today, you know? So that part is, for makeup wise, just practice and play and don't give up.
Yep, don't get upset, don't get frustrated. Just keep working on it. No,
Exactly.
that's thank you so much for sharing your tips. It's very useful. It's very helpful,
Thanks.
especially for
Anytime.
people who are kind of on the fence, or if they want to do something a little bit more complicated. It's
Yes,
just
go
great.
for
It's
it.
it's great to have someone come on the show like that and share those tips.
Thanks.
Um, so,
Hmm.
a little bit of a switch.
Hmm.
So in August of 2018,
Hmm.
you wrote, and I will try to quote this as best as I can, although I
Sure.
probably will get the voicing wrong. Um, the friendships made through conventions are so wonderful and true precisely because the time you get together is so short. The people that I got to spend time with, an hour, a day, a few minutes, made such an impact. Love you all. Thank you for making this nerd feel welcome. Um, I've experienced this a little bit myself. Would you mind talking about the friendships that get made at cons, the
Hmm.
experiences that you've had with that, and how it's impacted or inspired, possibly even changed the course of your cosplays? Because I just
Definitely.
think that's such a powerful statement that you
Thank you.
make.
Yeah, you sent me that, and I had to go back and find that post because I thought, oh, that's so nicely worded. Wow. And it, yeah, the cons for me really are about the friendship and the people that you meet because growing up for me, I was part of sports teams, but I also loved to read. And I also, I never really fit into a particular category, the mean girls stereotype of, oh, these are the jocks and these are the nerds and these are, whatever. And so finding the cosplay community where someone dressed up as, an anime character outside of the convention could be, a doctor or a waitress or any number of things, and finding that you're all different, you all don't completely fit in, but you fit in this liminal space at a convention. And so finding people in those 2 or 3 or 4 days and spending that time with them where you can just be is, I think, creates a stronger bond than a lot of the ones that we experience in our everyday lives because it's
Mhm.
so, go, go, go all the time. And as I'm sure you and all the people listening have experienced, cons are like a roller coaster of emotions and events. Things happen and you're crazy happy, and then, something happens and you're a little down for a while, and then something brings you back up. And going through those changes in emotions, I think, help foster friendships and let you support others and let others support you, which creates that bond of trust.
No, it's absolutely true. And it's I guess you don't think about it necessarily when you're there. I mean, you
Yeah.
do, but you don't. The perspective maybe isn't there because things go so fast.
Yes.
But that yes, the relationships can be made very quickly,
Hmm.
or that you feel. I think you feel like you've known some of the people a little longer than you have. That's been
Yeah.
my experience too. Is you
Hmm.
meet somebody on Instagram, you see them at a con, and there's a bit more of a connection just because you have been kind of talking to them back and forth a little bit.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
exactly. And you kind of know, oh, you're into this. I love this. And you've got that starting point. Yeah. And I found that it's also true because obviously I've been going to cons and I just went to my first LARP, and the LARP is about the same length. And oh, sorry, my computer's doing something weird. Oh, all right. But
mhm.
the LARP itself was a lot like that too, because it's that same level of intensity, and you're just wanting to connect with people in that space who know what it is to be there.
Yes, and for those of us who have not LARP, now I'm going back quite a ways in back in my day. So it's live action role playing. For
Yeah.
those of us who aren't familiar, it's a little bit cosplay,
Yeah.
but you don't necessarily have to be dressed up. So my friends and I used to do masquerade once upon a time,
Cool.
uh, downtown in a very small town, and actually it was kind of the it's where TSR got started in Wisconsin. So if anybody's Googling around for things, they would know where I was from, um, or at least when I was in high school. But yeah, certainly talk about. Now, did this already happen? Is it scheduled, or did you already get into LARPing? Um,
So I have always wanted to try LARP. Since I knew it was a thing, I was absolutely certain this is going to be my thing. I'm going to be into this because I'm a theater student. I'm a theater major, and playing pretend is honestly I love to do it, and I love to see other people doing it, and I love the joy that comes out of it. And Madeline, once again, she's a catalyst for a lot of things in my life, but she introduced me to the Instagram for Felon Fair.
mhm.
And if you ever go to their page, you just see this cohesive world that they have built through a series of pictures, and you can see all of these stories. And I was then introduced to the event that, of course, they host every year called Weekend Warrior. And I had never, ever been to a LARP before. And I saw the event and I thought, oh, great, maybe I'll go next year. That sounds pretty cool. I'll save up, I'll go for next year. And then I started looking at flights and looking at ticket prices. And all of a sudden, I had bought my ticket and bought a flight and decided, well, I'm going in a month. And it was a fantastic decision. It was so fun. And I put my phone down and didn't pick it up for 3 days. It was fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, was it a big group for the LARP, or was it a smaller,
I would
just a few people?
say, yeah, I wouldn't say it's nowhere near the size of Bicoline, which happens in Quebec up here in Canada every year, but it's about 150-ish people and growing. So we'll see what it's like this next coming year. But that number of people, I think, worked pretty well because you form a family. You have enough people to do battles, which are
Hmm.
so fun. Oh my gosh. But you also have few enough people that you get to familiarize yourself with faces and names and really play around, which is fantastic.
No, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
So, what are you working on now, and what are you looking forward to working on in 2020? What projects might you have that you could share with us that are coming up?
Sure thing. So I kind of have Elsa on the docket from Frozen 2. I
Hmm.
love her, what I call the elements dress, after she finds out who she is and what power she has. I love that dress. It's been causing me heck lately, so it's on pause. It's in the timeout corner right now. But that's definitely one that I want to work on, and one that will give me a lot of new skills like ombre dyeing and working with chiffon and trying to blend that dress into my neck somehow. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but we'll see. And then I also have plans to redo my ranger outfit for the LARPs as well. I'm really digging the medieval-esque aesthetic, and I want to learn more about the actual construction and the actual aesthetic of, times around the 13 and 1400s. So, some research having to be done on that front. But other than that, I think I've got most of the year kind of open. It's a bit of a question mark right now. It'll depend on the shows that come out and
Hmm.
things that come up. But you never know. There might be a critical role cosplay coming in there too. Wink, wink. But
And we will be looking forward to it. I can't wait. I think it's
thank you so much.
everything's so amazing. And I could ask so many. There's so many questions that keep coming up. I mean, we could talk about theater. We could talk. I mean, there's so many Maybe I should send you another invite. We should do a part two
Heck
at
yeah.
some point in the future. Have you back on the show. There's so much more to talk
Woo.
about. But I do have three questions usually at the end of the show,
Mhm.
and it does come up so fast it makes me sad. But three sanctuary questions, two are usually a little bit silly or not quite so focused, and then there's one that's usually the same. So
Awesome.
I will ask away. And the first one is, who is your favorite Voltron character and why?
Ooh, this one's so hard. I love them all. I
And
think in the
it can be
end,
84 Voltron or recent, either one, the
oh,
Netflix
I
version.
haven't actually, I haven't seen the old one, so we're gonna have to go with the recent one. Um, I would say Lance.
Lance.
Yeah.
See, now
I,
Lance, that character translates very well back into 84 too, just in case you're wondering. I love Lance in both.
okay. I
Maybe not so
really
much the
loved it.
princess; she's very different. But
Ah,
no, that's very cool. So why? Why I know why me for Lance, but why Lance?
I love how I like the complexity in his character. So outside, he's very much the goofball and very confident seeming, but you get these glimpses throughout the show that he's just not, there's underneath it, there is something more and there's a mask that's being worn normally. And I find characters who do that really intriguing because you always want to know more and you want to just ask them, who are you? Who are you really? What are you actually thinking? What are you actually feeling? I love that.
No, that's awesome. And he is complicated and he does grow a lot as the show goes on,
Yes. Yeah.
which I like. I like to see it when they have characters that it's not just episodic, especially in a
Yes.
cartoon, where there
Yeah.
actually is some development. It's just much more fun.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So speaking of,
Mhm.
question two, if there were a play, a musical, a series, or a movie, what would be the role that you would most want to play and why?
Oh, this one is so hard. If you asked me tomorrow, I bet my
Be
answer would
different.
be different. But ah, right now, I would say probably. I mean, my first thought is Star Wars because Rey is so badass, and I would love to have a lightsaber and be force sensitive. Because could you imagine you're sitting on the couch, you need the remote? Haha, come here. But I would also love to kind of live in a world filled with like all the aliens that come from the Star Wars world as well. And I'm not super well versed in Star Wars, so I don't know all of the lore. And I'm sure, the looming Darth Vader and the dark side would be very stressful. But it would be so cool. You get a light stick and you get to go and smack people with it. I would love to be in Star Wars.
And if you get really good at the Force, you can just like sit at home on a rock and send your projection to work for you. That's
Right?
that's
It's
what I
a
would do.
perfect solution. Yeah.
Um, so question three, final question for
Mhm.
you. If you can make a positive impact on the world, what would you want it to be and why?
This one is one I've thought about for a while. And at my core, I believe in a universal joy deriving from a sense of play. And I would love to impart on the world even a fraction of that joy because we are so bombarded with dictators and the fires in Australia
Mhm.
and wars and famine and poverty and inequality. Sometimes you need a moment where you can just play pretend and find joy in that and in the imagination. I think that's what makes us human during the hard times.
I agree.
Thanks.
I agree. No, that's it's very
Yeah.
well said, which
Thank you.
I've gathered to expect nothing short of well said from Valentine Cosplays. It has been an amazing and very, this is one of the fastest podcasts for me that has ever, like, usually time slows down a little bit, but it's, I guess we've covered a lot of different things, but it certainly doesn't seem like any time has passed.
No, this was
So,
so quick. Thank you so much.
but no, thank you so much for being on the show and for sharing all your insights and your talents and abilities and creations and creativity. Um, where can we find you and how can we support you online?
So you can find me on Instagram as ValentineCosplays or on Twitter as ValentineCos with a P at the end. And I do have a Ko-fi if you would ever like to contribute financially. That is always appreciated and always goes towards my cosplays. But
Mhm.
even just a like or a comment or a share means more to me than you could possibly know.
All right. Well, we will be sure to support you every way we can.
Thank you.
And again, thank you so much. This has been the Heroes of Cosplay Sanctuary podcast. I'm Scotty B. Valentine's Cosplays. Thanks so much for listening. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.